I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Carey Stinson, and as always, I am so thrilled you're here, and you are going to be thrilled to be here too. I hear Barney, Barney, Barney all the time. I get suggestions, all these wonderful emails and social media, and please keep doing them. And this is someone I've wanted to have on the show for a long time, and we just kind of crossed paths. We're like, oh my gosh, this is the time to have her on. So a lot of you probably don't know this, but there was actually a female that played Barney on tour. She's a friend of mine. She was fabulous on the road, and I am thrilled to have her today. Sarah Vernon Swartz. Sarah, how are you?
Hi, Carey. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. I've been waiting for this, so well, I appreciate it.
I'm sorry to make you wait, but I'm so thrilled you're here now.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. Well, congratulations to you on everything that you've been doing with Purple Tales and Purple Roads, and I'm excited for you. It's great that you're still carrying on the legacy.
Well, thank you so much. It's just so important. These stories and the people are so important, and your story is so important. And I'm so glad you're going to be able to tell everyone that today. It's one probably a lot of people don't know. And the cool part is there's 2 parts to your story, because you were on tour as Barney, as one of the Barney performers, and then you actually was a wrangler. And that's where we got to really know each other on the Barney set, I think series 1000, 1200. So a bunch of those episodes as well. You know, sometimes I go all over the place, and I think we're going to do that a little bit, because the story everyone wants to know is, how did you become Barney? But a step before that, how did you get into entertainment? Let's start there.
Sure. So ironically, actually, I was a very shy child. My mother had me in dance, and by the time I hit middle school, which is just such an awkward period in everybody's life, I said, nope, I don't want to dance. I don't want people looking at me. I don't want to be on stage, which is just ironic. And then in high school, around my sophomore year, I got the bug. I had to take an acting class, and I remember leaving the classroom, which was in a black box theater. In the classroom, it was just bare. And then the next day I came in, and it was a full-blown house with furniture and wallpaper. And I was just struck. I was like, wow, they changed this overnight. And I knew then I had to do it. I went on to the University of North Texas and did got a performing arts degree.
I gotta say real quick, go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
Stepdaughter is getting ready to go there, so we're very excited in the fall. So yes, I got to comment on Mean Green. It's a great school.
So yeah, I went to North Texas, did the performing arts degree, and actually after I completed my junior year, I had been doing some auditions, and I had auditioned for Dallas Children's Theater touring production, and I got cast as Clara in Heidi. So at the end of my junior year and before my senior year, I actually took a year off from school because I had gotten a professional acting gig. It's rare that anybody comes out of college with a job in their field, let alone acting. So
very true.
Yeah. So I took that year and toured the nation doing Heidi and with Dallas Children's Theater. And then I came back and I finished my senior year. There was no time, I didn't stop going to school, after that. I continued, finished my senior year. And in the spring, I had a director that said, if you get 1 out of 10 auditions, so if you get cast once out of 10 auditions, then you're really good. And so I said, all right, well, I have to go on 10 auditions. 9 of them will be no's, and then the 10th one will be a yes. So I just found any audition I could go on, and Barney happened to be the fourth audition. And so I wasn't even, I think that really freed me because I wasn't stressed about, oh, I have to get this job. I have to prove that I'm good enough to get this role, And so then I was able to really, I didn't have the nerves or the stress, I guess.
Now,
and so I just went in.
Did you know this was actually for Barney? Did you know this was a costume that you were auditioning for?
You know what? That I don't remember. So I don't know if I thought I was just coming in for a dancer, because as in a lot of your other podcasts, yeah. And as most Barney fans are familiar with, there are all kinds of characters throughout the touring show. And so there are dancers that are in other costumes. And so I don't actually remember if I was auditioning specifically for Barney or I was just coming in and doing kind of a blanket audition and then putting you, wherever they thought.
Right.
So yeah, so I was just going on audition after audition, and then I got a call. I had not graduated college yet, but I was trying to get something lined up so that when I graduated college, I had a job, and I got a call back. And that was very shocking. I was like, what? You want me to come back and audition again for Barney? And that was really special. I actually have the pictures. I don't know what I'm allowed to share, but I have
just show it all. And I'm curious. Obviously, I lived in this world, so you're going to get a lot of these questions. So was this Sloan Coleman and Penny Wilson? And
yes,
we have talked so much about Penny Wilson, as she just is a special person in the world to me, and I know she had to be to you as well. And so as you're talking this, I can visualize this whole audition.
Yes, I have a great picture we'll get to, and Penny's right in the middle. But so they take the pictures of you in the costume,
there you go,
right, to see where you are. And dare I show, gosh, this is almost 20 years ago, so I don't look the same. Time has added a little weight.
Trust me, I know.
But then there I am in my silks.
Look at that. Oh my gosh, is that awesome?
I know. It's just
Purple Roads fans, I told you in for a treat. You're going to see some things you've never seen before and hear some stories you never heard before. I haven't seen those pictures.
You haven't seen those pictures?
No, but I have worn those silks, so I know all about that part.
Oh yeah, the silks, the famous silks. So there was in the callback, they had you came back in, you then put the costume on, because in the audition you don't wear the costume, but in the callback you do. They have you put that on, they have you do some dance numbers, and then they actually have an interview portion. And I'll never forget that during the interview portion, I'd gone back into the same room where we had just danced in the costume, and they had asked me just about my experience, and I had shared with them how I had toured with Dallas Children's Theater. And I told them, oh yeah, there were 15 of us. We drove the van, we set up the stage, we did the production, we tore it down, we drove to the next city. At times I was sewing my costume in the back of the van. And they just looked at me and they were like, oh, wow. Well, if you can do that, this is going to be like a rock concert, touring production for you. You won't have to do any of that, So I made a really good friend, obviously, as we all do through Barney. We've made lots of good friends, but one of my dear friends, Margaret, who I know you've had on.
Yes, Margaret Foster.
Margaret Foster, Stickney, yes. She told me later she was actually the one that leaned over and, I guess at some point after I was done and said, why don't we give the girl a try? It was created by a female, and there were female producers, but there hadn't been a female Barney. And so she was like, why don't we give her a try? And I got the job. I got the job, the dream job.
Well, I love that. And, you know, we kind of talked about this beforehand, but it really is the perfect time to talk about this, because I am such a believer in that every person can do everything. I really am. And I think companies, businesses, you name it, miss out when they pull back because of gender or race. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. But with that being said, it is really important what you did. Being a female, and I love that. It doesn't surprise me because I know Margaret really well. She was my wrangler for so many years, the most amazing, just amazing woman. And for her to push for you does not surprise me one bit. And of course, Sloan and Miss Penny giving you a chance doesn't surprise me one bit either. Yeah. But did you think about that at all? I mean, did you know the history of that all the Barneys had been male before, that, you know, that currently that we were both males that were doing it, the other roles?
No, I didn't. You know, maybe that's my living in, looking at life through rose-colored glasses, if you want to say, or my naivety. It never occurred to me that it was something that I couldn't do. One of my professors once told me in college that acting and in the industry, it is still one of the industries where they can be very specific, right? Because, for instance, you're not going to have, you have to be a very specific when you're directing, like, let's say Roosters, for instance, okay? Sure. That play, that calls for a very specific cast. Sure. And so there are going to be times in this industry where you are told no, because the director and the playwright, there needs to be certain criteria that right. have to be met for certain things. But as far as Barney is concerned, it just didn't. I was like, okay, you know, I was strong, I was tall, I fit the height requirement, because, you know, you do have to be a certain height inside the costume. Right. So it didn't occur to me that I couldn't do it.
Well, first of all, I love that, and that should be the way it is. It should absolutely be the way it is. Barney was very physical, and so that was the aspect of him. And I think, you know, you saw a lot of males in the role, but I know that other females had been talked to and almost played the role as well. So the company was always open towards it, and I think you just fit the right spot when you came in. I know when I was hired, and I know when my good buddy Josh Martin was hired, because Josh was the second Barney on tour with me. And when Sloan came to me and said, what I'm looking for is someone that has your heart. And I was hired because of my heart. I'd never been in a costume. I hadn't been that stuff, but Dennis DeShazer and Cheryl Leach and Kathy Parker watched me with kids, right? That was the most important thing. To be Barney, I had to have a heart. And then you can figure out the dancing and the, you know, all that stuff. So you obviously had that, and that was what was most important. And obviously, knowing you as I do, I know that you have that heart. So you get this job, and now you're going on the road with a big purple dinosaur, who's very popular, by the way. And for all you Barney fans that you're dying to know, it was a colorful world. This was the tour. Yeah. This is the one I had just left and gone to the TV show. And you were out there, and with Margaret. Look at that! Look at that!
Colorful world.
Yeah, I know this lady doing that, and that picture there. And of course, my one of my favorite people on this planet, Mr. David Voss, is in that picture as well.
Oh, I know. He's my favorite too. He is. He always had the best jokes. You know.
See, I don't know if I would agree with that part.
They were kid friendly, and they were just so corny.
They were. So corny, and he sells them well.
He does. He does.
So you go out on this crazy tour.
So here's where it gets really interesting too. Well, I mean, I have so many interesting ties, and how what a small world it is on some other things. And
this is why we do an hour show, so you can tell them all.
So I get cast before I graduate, I get cast as Barney for Barney's Colorful World. I then graduate college. I go, I have an internship that I have to do with not have to do, but I'm lucky enough to do with Dallas Summer Musicals, and then a children's theater down in San Antonio. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, then came down to San Antonio to pick me up after I'd done my stint there for the internship. And I'd actually lived with his parents for 6 weeks as well, because they lived in San Antonio. And when he came to pick me up, he proposed. So here's the timeline. So I get the gig, I graduate college, he proposes, we buy a house, and then I go on the road. So I am planning the wedding from
the road
while I'm touring Barney's Colorful World. Yeah.
Love that. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah, I still have my wedding planner that I had that was in the bunk. You know how you have the 15 bunk beds inside the bus? And so I had my bag and I had my wedding binder, my wedding planning binder. There was even one night where we were, Margaret and possibly Jen, they were helping me put ribbons through the save the date cards, while we were on the bus. So yeah.
Well, that's fun.
But my husband said, you have to go, you have to do this because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And he was so right. And, he came to visit me 3 times while we were out on the road. I'm just so thankful that he understood that he actually understood that more than I did. Because I will always have that experience.
Yeah, it's just hard to tell. It's really great that he did understand that, because a lot of people outside this industry struggle with it. If you're not in the entertainment world, you don't understand something like this. And then obviously Barney was very popular at that point, right? So you're already stepping into something. Both those previous tours were very successful, so they just kept it rolling. So you go out. Do you remember your first city?
Yes. So we had to, I guess we did our soft opening, if you will, in Memphis.
Okay.
So we had done a number of rehearsals in Allen. And I have some pictures.
Oh my gosh. Was that the original building? Where in Allen did you go? Did you go to the publishing building?
There were a bunch of offices. There were a bunch of offices.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But I have a picture. It's blurry. Let me tell you, I don't even know what kind of camera this was from 2003. But here we are in the building.
This is a retro show.
Yeah, exactly. Rehearsing. And then in Barney's Colorful World, so I guess I need to back up. I'm sure your fans who listen to this regularly know that when you tour, there's 2 of every dino. There's 2.
Yeah, they're aware of that.
Yeah. Just because it's so demanding, and then there are quick changes and things like that, and that's fun.
Well, and you're doing hospital visits and TV shows.
Correct.
As well.
Yep. And so in Barney's Colorful World, because this picture I'm going to show you, it's the two dinos practicing together. We had to ice skate, which meant that we had to be on roller skates. And so here we are practicing in Allen.
I love it.
With the roller skates on, going, what? We have to wear these giant feet and
I love that.
and roller skate. So yes, that was in Allen. So there was a period of time where we rehearsed there, but then we went to Memphis to then, I guess, put it all together with the crew and the sound and the lighting and put the stage up. And that's also where we took all the photos for the program. That
with Dennis Full. Was it Dennis Full?
I don't know. I don't know.
Did he have a mustache?
That was a really long day, as you know.
Yeah.
Because they put together this beautiful, colorful program that parents, can buy.
Right.
All the photos from the show. And so that's where we did that. So that was the first city. But then from Memphis, we went to Radio City.
Oh, wow.
So
Boy.
that was,
Boy,
and I think
Sloan had gotten bold at that point.
yeah.
And I think that I'm pretty sure that was Glenn Grabsky, who's a very good friend of mine, who was doing the booking at that time. In fact, I know it was.
Okay.
I know it was. He had been a tour manager for one of our earlier tours, and then he went in and worked at the office, and he was doing the booking. So it might have been when Radio City was available. That might have been the issue there. But that's kind of bold to go straight from Memphis to Radio City.
Memphis right into Radio City. And, we were just getting used to the demand of the show and dancing. Right. That costume is 50 pounds. And then yes, so having to dance for that 90-minute show, 2 or 3 times a day, depending on what day of the week it was. But when we went to Radio City, we had 3 performances in one day. And you and Dean had actually come out, because I remember meeting you guys in New York, and we all went out afterwards. And David Joyner, they had brought David Joyner in as well to Radio City for him to teach us the signature 360 jump. That was interesting.
I'll bet that was interesting.
Oh gosh. That was there were several times where it was you want me to do what?
And that's what we're talking about with all this. I mean, it's one of the most difficult costumes you've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
I have told stories. I worked with Carol Spinney. I worked with Big Bird. I've seen that costume. I've watched him do it. And he was just looking at me like, are you kidding me? I worked with goodness gracious, with Noel, with Bear in the Big Blue House.
Okay.
And these performers would stay in the costume, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I never got out of breaks when I worked with, they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm so used to it. I've just been living in this for years. But, when you're first getting into it, my goodness gracious, how you work the mouth and, 50 pounds, David and I both had a 75-pound costume before they switched to 50.
Wow.
And every aspect of what it took to make Barney, you can't see, you've got vision issues. I mean, my goodness gracious. I learned a 360 from my mother, because my mother was a professional dancer, and she actually taught me the bell kick and the 360 and all those things. I told him I could do it, but I went to my mom and said, how do I do this? And she had to teach me the technical aspect. To throw a big purple dinosaur in the air 360 and land and not hurt yourself is difficult. So
very much so. And that tail.
Yeah.
That tail. So funny enough, in Memphis, again, during the soft opening, we're working everything out. So in Barney's Colorful World, as the title states, Barney, in typical fashion, goes and explores different parts of the world.
Right.
And there's an under the sea part. And so Barney gets on a boat. And Barney is driving the boat. Now, I'm not in costume in this one, but so here's the boat. Okay?
I love it.
And so on this boat, we're rehearsing, and they initially, this portion of the boat, right back here, they had initially just Velcroed it, like with some really heavy Velcro. And we were practicing, and there's a person in the underside of that boat with basically like pedals or something to move the boat forward and back. And the stage, I guess, wasn't smooth or something, and we hit a bump, and I wasn't stable enough, so I grabbed onto that part of the boat up here, and it came loose, and I went, woo, and I fell backward.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't get up. You can't get up. I mean, and this poor guy who's, moving the boat forward and backwards, they're like, Barney's down, Barney's down. And you can't get up because of that tail.
Right.
And your arms, you don't really have a way to shift over. So that was humorous. So they then changed it from Velcro and secured that down with some screws.
Yeah, we had in big surprise, we had a car. Same concept. There was someone down there doing the same thing, driving this thing back and forth. And we had a balloon too.
Wow.
Were you blown away by the sets?
Oh, yes. I mean, when I tell stories, there were the size of this production. You have to envision 3 touring buses, the cast bus, the crew bus, and the kids bus. And these are massive buses. And then 7 semis to get everything that went into this production from venue to venue. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing but from the other costumes, the other character costumes, there was an elephant, there was a bear, there was a starfish, there was a polar bear, penguins. I mean, and they're not small costumes, like, that all of it. And then from the set itself, like I said, we had the boat, we had a bus. I mean, I even have just kind of like a backstage, just pieces, the gazebo, we had an airplane. I mean, there's so much. So
boy, I have so many places I want to go with this. I mean, I'm gonna go somewhere else and then I'll hit that later. Because, I told you one of the big things about Purple Roads is hearing other people's experiences that got to do things that I got to do. And I'm just curious. So I know you got to go to hospitals and I know you got to meet these sweet kids. I want to hear and it's, you said you might tear up. That's fine. We're allowed to do that on Purple Roads. Yeah. But it's important. It's important because that changed my life. I mean, 2 months into when I started Barney, I went to a hospital in Dallas, Texas, and it changed my life. I was 23 years old. I realized very quickly I need to become more responsible because these kids believe in this character and they didn't come to see Carey, they came to see Barney. And I learned so much from these kids, their resilience and their humor and their creativity and all of it was incredible. So what was it like for you when you actually went to a hospital or you did a meet and greet and you met these sweet, wonderful kids?
Yeah, you're right. This will be the part that gets me choked up. And I'm really glad that you asked. Because certainly, I'm trying to collect myself. Certainly performing and all the adventures that we had are fun and memorable, but the best part of the job was visiting the hospitals and doing the meet and greets and seeing their faces. And I was even pulling out more pictures. I told you I really enjoyed getting ready for this because it helped me just walk down memory lane and just appreciate it all over again. I mean, I certainly do. I look fondly upon this time of my life, and it's just such a unique moment that not many people get to say, hey, I did this. But I found pictures, from meet and greets of children, that just loved Barney. And I even had a letter. I have a letter here because we would always get letters and pictures that children had colored prior to the shows. They would send them back. But I have a letter from a mom, who made us aware of how significant Barney was to her and her family. Here, just saying that our 5-year-old daughter adores you. You've been bringing smiles, learning, and fun into her life since she was 1 year old. For that alone, we say, Barney, we love you. But since her diagnosis with leukemia, you have brought us so much more. And reading that that they would sing Barney songs during her spinal taps. And when she was scared and when she wasn't just feeling great, it was Barney. It was Barney that she wanted to watch. And then even visiting one of the hospitals, there was a young, I think it was a young man who had just come off of dialysis. He was maybe like 5 or 6. Okay. And he had just had his dialysis treatment. And they would give the kids lollipops, after that. And he came up to me and he said, "Barney, you want my lollipop?" And I just lost it inside the costume. Excuse me. I lost it inside the costume, but you can't make a sound. So that was really touching, and was definitely, that's all you wanted to do. You just wanted to bring joy to these kids. There were even little shows that we would do at one of the hospitals we went, and we sang, well, I didn't sing, I was body talent. But we did the songs, "You Are Special," and had a little sing-along, with them. And I don't know, it was just so, I don't know what else to say other than it was so important. It was so meaningful. That was as you were talking about, the heart, in just giving back to those that we could bring joy for them. So
that's why everyone was hired that way. That's why everyone was hired that way. You can learn to jump. You can do those things. Not that there's not a lot of skill in what we did, but it's the other part that's really challenging, because they created this incredible character that loved everyone, all the things that we all want to be. He was and is, and they just saw their friend. They just plain and simple saw their friend.
Yeah.
And so in those moments, I had one as well, where I was in a burn unit to a child that was just, it was hard to watch. And she sang the "I Love You" song to me, and I blew her a kiss, and she said, "Barney, I love you." And I was having the same reaction you're having, physically, very emotional. And so you learn to keep that together, and you learn, this is her and Barney. But boy, I've never stopped, this is 20 something years. That might've been almost 25, 30 years ago. And what I learned from that little girl, and we get to share those lessons with people, because it's real. That's what I love. Every time people talk about, I didn't like Barney, or I hated Barney, and all that. And we know they didn't really hate him, but they just didn't understand it. But when they hear those things, they're like, "Oh my gosh, now I totally get it." And I'm with you 1,000%. I feel like we're the blessed ones.
Oh, 100%.
But the other part that's really important, and I like to talk about this as well, it wasn't just about, as much as we love those kids that were ill, there was also these wonderful kids that weren't, right, in the audience every night that you have to perform and entertain with. And I think,
Yes.
The coolest thing, I always say the coolest thing was that I knew the set list, right? I knew the songs coming up, and I know the reactions that are coming, right? We know it's crazy when the "I Love You" song is done.
Yes. Oh, yes. I was going to say at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah.
I would get emotional a lot of nights doing that. What was it like for you when you have an arena or a theater full, singing the "I Love You" song and watching them kiss their parents?
Yeah. Yeah.
Telling their mom and dad, "I love you."
Yes. And you can hear, they don't want it to end. Just like as adults, we don't want a concert to end. But you can hear that in the crowd as well. And they're hollering for Barney, and Barney, look at me. And they're trying to get you to just keep that going, that joy and that magic. And then those confetti cannons go off, and boom, to try and stop some of the tears, because Barney does have to go off stage
Right.
now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's amazing when they're all singing it with you. It's an experience unlike any other. I'm so lucky that I got to do it. it's a
it's
part of me.
And what was it like for you jumping out of that curtain to start off the show? That's a cool thing too.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And especially for that first show when it's finally happening. And I mean, I had never performed to a crowd that size. Maybe, on the children's theater tour, maybe 400,
Right.
and now we're talking thousands. And
Every night.
Every night. Yeah. Every show.
Every show.
Yeah. Just that energy. They just, super fans, just going crazy for Barney and just hollering, wow, and clapping, and just, it's very energetic, very energizing. That definitely gets you going. So.
All right. Some quick questions on
Okay.
on your tour life. What was your favorite part to do in that show? What was your favorite scene? What was your favorite, whether it was a dance or whatever it was, what was your favorite part of that show?
That's really tough. I mean, I guess I would say, the opening was always fun because the caboose was there, Barney was coming out, and then you would introduce Babybop, Babybop would show up, and BJ, and just, that was fun. I mean, I guess I would say the most unique was definitely the ice skating, or having to roller skate. And I will tell you, so we have the Wranglers, and as you know, basically, as you were saying, you can't see. And so to get from backstage to the wings, they have to bring you. And then at that moment, that's when they'll put the teeth in and they send you out. And because of the two dinos, you're always swinging in and out. Like if one's carrying the show, and then the second one will come on real quick when Barney's gone away and Barney's wearing something different. And so they would always say, okay, who's in the costume today? Because some of the, like the scarf where they had to like pin it, for a woman.
Right.
They had to pin it in certain areas.
Right.
So they would say, wait, okay, who's in the costume? And so I then became Barnett. So it was Barney Barnett. So that was always fun because we would be standing in the wings, for me to come on, and they were like, okay, I'd say, okay, it's Barnett in here. But yeah, the show itself, like I said, the excitement of the opening with coming out, and then, like I said, getting to introduce Babybop, and then BJ coming on, that was always fun. David Voss and his starfish, certainly in Under the Sea. And I'm trying to think of what else. And Under the Sea was really cool because there was like the black light kind of effect as well, so it kind of glowed. But roller skating, I guess, really just stuck out to me because it was another level of challenge,
I got to do it on the series and freaking loved it. I love the challenges. I just love the challenges of it. So it was definitely difficult, but that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. I love that. Do you have a favorite city?
Oh gosh. I mean, I had been to New York before. New York's always a fun place to visit.
But nothing like playing Radio City.
Oh gosh, no, that I had not ever played Radio City before. No, that's again, another once in a lifetime. So, and I heard on one of your podcasts how you guys were talking about bucket lists, and yeah, I mean, wow, how lucky am I that I got to check that off.
Right.
I have the tour schedule because I was trying to go through, you're moving so much. You're changing cities twice a week. So there are certain cities that just stick out just because of either the weather or something that we did while we were there. Rhode Island shut down. Like that's how bad the weather was there. And so I remember that we got snowed in. and I was dragging my suitcase through the snow, trying to get it into the hotel. And the hotel was starting to run out of food, like we had to wait. So that was a pretty bad blizzard. If Rhode Island has to shut down.
Yeah.
I remember I got sick in Connecticut. And so I always remember that one because I was sick. But the show has to go on.
Right.
Doesn't matter. And then we did some, we had some fun like group cast and crew get-togethers in certain cities in Erie, Pennsylvania. A place that that I had not been before. So some of those cities stick out, but just because of the things that that we did there. Detroit, as well. We did some get-togethers, and actually during that tour, I think we were in Wisconsin, and there was a shuttle explosion. I remember that being on the news. So it's just some of those things that happen in history while you're on tour. So Philadelphia was fun. I remember I had to buy a coat because I brought a Texas coat on tour, a tour that started in January for the Northeast. And a Texas coat is not going to cut it. So I remember I was in Philadelphia and I went to the closest department store and I bought myself a true coat that was going to keep me warm. So yeah, I mean, those cities stick out because there were very specific things that, that happened.
Oh my gosh, that is so much fun.
Yeah.
And I know I had to get I had to get a real jacket. I had a ski jacket because it was light, right? But it would handle the cold because you end up in some cities like, oh my gosh. Our snow one was North Dakota. We went up to North Dakota. It was stupid. Kyle Nelson's from there.
Okay.
So it was like no big deal for him. And I'm like, oh my God, this is stupid. The snow and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you did that, and then we got to talk about it here.
Yeah.
When you came to the set.
Yes.
Wrangle.
Yes. And I just have to tell you, I'm going to interject this just because I think it's fascinating to me when I finally made the connection. My time at Barney was definitely whatever you believe in the stars, the universe's plan, God's plan. Because my very first job at 16 was a tour guide at the movie studios of Las Colinas. And that was the summer of 95.
Yeah.
And Barney was being filmed at the movie studios at that time because I gave the tours. So when you guys weren't in production, we would walk on set. Like I would open the door and I would show them, and here's the Barney set because it was ooh and ah, that, wow, this is where Barney films. And so I just think it's so interesting that you were Barney at that time. And I was giving tours, not knowing that 8 years later, I would be Barney. It's such a small world. It's such a small world.
Well, it is such a small world. It's just funny. I had no idea. Is what I love doing this. I had no idea you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And funny enough, even in college, through the radio, television, film department, I ended up doing an internship with Reunion Production Company. I think probably my sophomore and junior year of college. And all the camera guys that I worked with, well, they were some of the same camera guys that were on set when I started working at Marsh Lane in Carrollton. I was just like, I know you. How do I know you? Oh, because we used to work together in sports. So it's, like Vic Sosa.
Oh,
yeah.
oh yeah.
So
I know Vic. Well, I would always pop out at a Ranger game and go tap him on the shoulder. He was usually working the outfield.
wow. Yeah. So it's fascinating to me. Clearly this was my path. And I just think it's so neat that we crossed paths early on in 95. And we were eventually going to work together. So, yeah, I mean, I finished the tour, I got married, and even everybody was calling me from the road on the day of my wedding, Margaret and Jen and Dave, and they all got on, and just hours before I was getting married, and they were still on the road. So got married, and then I worked at Dallas Summer Musicals for a while in the actually in the accounting department. So I was just like, as long as I'm working in the theater, I'm good. So it didn't matter what I was doing. So I worked with Dallas Summer Musicals for a while. And then I'm pretty sure it was Margaret again that called me and said, hey, we need a wrangler for Babybop for Jeff Ayers.
Yes. You drew the short straw, and I don't say that because of his height. I say that because he is the most ornery person and the person that I love. I can't even tell you how much I love this man, but if you really know this guy, he is a piece of work.
Demanding. He's demanding.
He is a piece of work.
Oh, but so I said, yeah, absolutely. So then I got the privilege of working behind the scenes now, and continuing my time with Barney and Friends. So I was a wrangler for Babybop. I mean, again, what was that? 2005 to 2006. And then again from 2007 to 2008. And funny enough, I had a lot of big life moments during Barney. So in series 1200, I was actually pregnant with my son. So while I was wrangling, so a lot of big life things. We also did I was a wrangler for a video, the Let's Make Music, and
yeah, that was a challenging one.
Yeah. The story with that, I'll never forget. We had to go up in a Ferris wheel, and I had to crouch down out of the camera, below Babybop. And for some reason, this, I don't know what you call it, the car, the cab, whatever you call it that you're inside of,
right,
was full of bees. And so, of course, we're trying to not have the bees go inside the costume. And then I'm down trying to swat them away, below Babybop and below the line of sight. So yeah, it's not as glamorous as everybody might think it is.
No, and it's so funny you even bring that thing up, because two things. I am not the hugest fan of heights, and so I was up higher than I wanted to be. Margaret was saving my life because I made her wrap onto my legs for safety. Unfortunately, Karen Barnes, who was the executive producer at this time, knew that I wasn't. I don't know if you remember this. And this thing was going around, and they stopped it with me on the very top, and she called lunch.
No.
Oh yes. As you could, I could just hear her laughing from down there, and I was like, "Son, when I get down." But those are the important parts to tell. We were a huge family. We laughed. We played with I mean, it's hours and hours and hours. And I'm so glad you talked about Margaret bringing you on in the wrangler role, because that's a really important part of this story. As much of a heart as all of us performers had, so did the crew, right? That was important too. It didn't really matter what your position was, right? You knew what we were doing was important. You're taking care of Jeff, and you're doing all of these things because you understand how important Babybop is to the kids, right? Yeah. You are such a big part of that. And I've never seen a set like that where everyone realizes, right? Oh my gosh, this is hard because we're doing these things and we're doing this and this and that. but everyone's role is so important. And you probably remember, we would bring Make-A-Wish kids to the set, and goodness gracious, how
Yeah.
tough that was.
And that's the thing, is that none of it can happen without the other. Yes, Barney is the star, but Barney can't be Barney without the kids, and Barney can't be Barney without the treehouse or the set. Barney
Right.
can't be that without Babybop and BJ, and then everybody that goes into making the costumes and doing the lighting and doing the props, and to bring that to life and make it so colorful and imaginative. And so there's no one person that's like making it all happen. It takes everybody.
Well, it does. And being a performer, you realize how important the wrangler role is, right? Because when you were the performer, you leaned on, because there's no question, every wrangler I ever had, I leaned on them.
Yep.
From Brian Blevins in the early days, Janet Bush and Margaret, I can't say enough, and I could go on and on. But they're there for you. And it's just such an important thing. I think it's cool that you did both parts of that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, because I had, not that other people didn't understand, but I was certainly coming from being inside the suit. So I knew what you were experiencing, and I knew the demands just of doing, a show. So it was very different for me to stand back and then watch you on set, because as I've heard you talked about before, and that I just witnessed, it's take after take. And there were times when you would just be standing around, and Margaret and Gilbert and we would all look at each other like, they can't just be standing around. They're in this, where's the apple box? Go get the apple. Because it is so physically demanding. And it's just part of the job, but I had, I guess just a little bit more insight, because I had been in the costume. So it was fun. It was fun to do both sides.
What was it like for you to see? Because, it's a totally different world on the road than coming back. It was great to come back, right? Because you have a family, right? You can do that part. Your home life is better than living on the road all the time.
Right.
But boy, it's a whole lot, when the music starts and you fire off and you're gone for, and then when it's done, it's done.
It's done.
And this one, it's take after take after take after take. What was that like for you, being part of both experiences?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. As far as in live performances, yep, you're gone, but you're doing show after show. It starts, whatever happens, then the show's done and you move on to the next one. Whereas with television, it's take after take after take, just to get the right shot, that right moment, that right presentation, or feel, or whatever it is that you're looking for. So I felt for you. Because I certainly knew how hot it was, and the hate, the weight, and how heavy it was. And so, and you can't get out of the Barney costume. It is all one. It's all one piece.
It's an experience.
So just seeing that take after take, and the long nights. There were times where we had some long nights. We were trying to get either a scene done, or we were trying to wrap that episode up. So yeah, I was in awe, certainly, of how long you guys could stay in that costume, because I didn't have to. To stay in that costume. That's, yes, for the show, but then the show was over and we could go on.
Right.
So,
right. Which was a cool aspect of it.
Yeah.
Tell me we're going to kind of just hit some random questions as we finish up.
Yeah.
And I know people are like, finish up. No, we still got some time. Cool things that happen on the road. Like I'll give you an example. This is one of the coolest things that ever happened to me on the road. Radio City, I got done. I'm walking backstage, to leave the theater. Production assistant comes, goes, Carey, can you jump back in real quick and do a quick meet and greet? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I come out and it's the drummer for U2.
Wow.
And there's his son. And I'm like, look at that. Of course, I can't do any of that. That's all inner here going, wow. And then you realize really quickly, he's just a parent, right? He's just excited because his kid is so cool to get it to meet Barney. It was such a cool thing. But cool things like that happen on the road, right? Yeah. And some of the places we got to get, Radio City and all that stuff. So what were some cool things that happened to you?
As I was preparing, I was listening to some of the other podcasts as well. And you have to remember, I was on the road from January of 2003 to May of 2003. So just about a 5-month stint.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we were on, as I had mentioned, like the Northeast, and mostly that's where we were. So we didn't have as many like celebrity encounters or anything like that. I do know when the second leg went out, and that's when Rick and Patrick took over, because neither Corby or myself came back for the second leg. I was getting married. Right. So I know there were stories there, like they met John Travolta in California, and things like that. So I don't. But
it could be anything. It didn't just have to be a celebrity thing. I mean, it could be anything. Some of the other cool stories are stuff like, that had nothing to do with celebrities.
Yeah, I will tell you, I met my mother's family, my mother's very Italian family, that I had not met before, her Aunt Teresa and Uncle Frank, up in Detroit. For the first time. So that was special for me because I was there and we coordinated so that I could meet them. And then let's see, I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, I really took the opportunity while I was in New York to see as many shows as possible. That was really special for me. So I was at the TKTS line, buying as many tickets as possible to see as many shows as possible. That was special. I'm trying to think of what else. I did
that too with the TKT. I did that too.
Yeah. Certainly the blizzard, that was wild. Those are just wild times, but not really any like, again, not any celebrity encounters or anything like that. Doing the news, that was always fun as well. I just remember it might have been Connecticut, even when I was sick. I can't remember what area we were in, and it was freezing. It was freezing outside, but that was the only time I was not hot in the costume. Like, oh, well, this feels great, So yeah, just I didn't really have any major experiences like some of the others.
Well, you had major experiences.
Yeah.
Different ways.
All
right. So as we wrap this up, and I know this is really hard to do this, but favorite moments, just kind of wrap up what your Barney experience was for you. I know that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with so much, right? The being part of that family and going on stage and doing meet and greets and the levels of emotion in this. This is not a typical, it's hard to even call it a job, really. Right. It's just
you're living. It's just, you're living. That is your life. I mean, you eat, sleep, breathe, everything with all the same people.
Right.
That entire 5-6 months, 2 years, however long you've been doing it. So yeah, it is very much a family.
But yeah, okay, we'll do it this way. As you were going through all of this to get ready for this show, right? What memories were coming to you? Emotions, feelings.
Sure. Definitely the audition process. Remembering being on that bus once we landed in Ithaca, New York, headed to our hotel and probably the venue. We were probably going to Radio City first, and just actually, sitting next to Margaret and getting to know her. I'm trying to think of what else. Definitely all of the children's hospitals, that always, sticks out in my mind. And then I always loved walking the stage. So anytime, and they teach you this in theater anyhow, like before a show, you walk the stage, you check and make sure your props are in place, and all of that. So I would always walk the stage once the crew had set it up. And that was just always this, I don't know, a magical moment for me. Just going out, walking, making sure there weren't any, uneven levels in the stage. I didn't want to fall again. We've already visited about that, and not be able to get up. So just taking in the quiet of the arena before, the show that was coming either that evening or the next day, depending again on what day you were arriving. So that was always special for me, because I was just kind of, on my own. And like I said, walking it and absorbing it and taking it all in, that this is getting ready to be full of 1,000 people or 2,000 people, or, and getting prepared. And the meet and greets, for sure. The meet and greets, just that special time. And David Voss saying, "Oh, Barney has to save his voice," so Barney can't talk or whatnot. But it was just such a magical time for me, and I think probably for everybody that's worked on Barney and has been able to be a part of that. So,
well, I can't thank you enough for being on.
Oh, thank you, Carey. Thank you for having me. It's really special. So I appreciate you wanting me to share my experiences and my time with you guys.
Well, it's very special, and I know people are going to enjoy this episode. As I said, I love it. I just learned more about you that I had no idea. It's so cool, and it's so cool to hear the different experiences, right? We all had different experiences, and then we had same experiences, and I think that's just so cool.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Carey.
And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you next week.